Hi friends, I'm Gwen.
And I'm Jacqueline. Welcome to Talk Bookish to Me,
the podcast where friends get together and talk about books.
Today's episode was requested by a listener. They really enjoyed our breakdown of thriller tropes from season 1, episode 4, and asked if we could do it for romance. And here we are. Gwen and I love thrillers, but we also enjoy some romance.
In today's episode, we're going to talk about popular romance tropes, which ones we like and which ones we don't. We are so excited to have our very first guest joining us today. With us, we have Bree Hill, a self-proclaimed unapologetic romance reader.
Bree, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Where can listeners find you?
Hey, I'm Bree Hill and I chat about romance on Instagram. My account is Falling for Romance.
Links to Bree's social media will be available in the notes of today's episode. Make sure you check her out.
So a quick reminder before we get started that our book discussion of Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson is coming up on February 15th. So our very next episode. You still have plenty of time to read it and join us for the discussion.
Before we jump into today's topic, we always share what we're currently reading. So Bree, what are you currently reading?
I'm currently reading 2 books. The first is Deeper by Rilsey Adams, which is the follow-up to a previous novella that she put out called Go Deep, and I loved it. And I'm also reading No Rest for the Wicked by Kresley Cole, which is book 2 in her Immortals After Dark paranormal romance series.
I love that. So I'm currently reading a Pepper Winters book. I picked it up at random. I didn't really have a plan. I know we always talk about having a plan on what you're going to pick up next, but I didn't because I was I'm not ready to start my February TBR yet. And I kind of finished with my January TBR. So I'm what am I going to pick up? And I know this book, it's super thick. It's 560 pages. It's called Unseen Messages. And I've kind of been in a romance kick. So this show is perfect because I know I'm going to get some recommendations from you. But I was just I'm going to pick this one up. It's not on audiobook. I'm probably not going to finish it in a couple days. It's going to take me a while. But I started that one last night. I'm about 50 pages in and I love Pepper Winters. So
nice. I am not in a romance mood. I've been knocking out the thriller books at the moment. So I am currently reading The Wife Upstairs. I just started it this morning. And I was listening to it on audio while I was cleaning my house and putting laundry away and stuff. So, I mean, it's okay for now. I'm not far enough into it to really know if I like it or not. And people say it's a Jane Eyre retelling, but I've never read Jane Eyre. So I have no clue if it's a retelling or not. But a lot of people said it's kind of like The Last Mrs. Parrish, which is one of my favorite books. But I don't know if that's they should be comparing it or if that's giving away stuff. I'm not sure because I really don't know. I'm not far enough, but it's about this normal, or actually I shouldn't even say normal. It's about a woman named Jane who used to be a foster child, which, oh my gosh, you guys, the last 3 books I've read all talked about foster kids. I don't know how this happened. Yeah, it's really weird. So I was scrubbing the toilet and then they were yeah, I was a foster child. And I was what? But anyway, so she goes on to start dating this widowed billionaire person or whatever, and is different POVs or whatever. So you're also hearing from other people. And I don't know if he killed his wife or where she is or what's going on. Cause the title is The Wife's Upstairs. And I'm what? I don't know. So I'm very confused at the moment.
Have you read that one, Bree?
I have it and I have not read it. I was actually chatting with a girlfriend a couple of days ago and I was I feel maybe The Wife Upstairs needs to be my next book. And she knows that I Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier is one of my favorite books. And she's I heard it's a Rebecca retelling. I'm how many retellings is this book?
Yeah, right.
Jane Eyre, yeah. Rebecca. Yeah. So I haven't read Rebecca or Jane Eyre, but I really did like that book. I don't think if people go into it looking for the retelling that it's going to be there. And I don't think The Last Mrs. Parrish is going to be I don't think that's a good comparison, but I really enjoyed it. So okay. I hope both of you do as well. Jacqueline, you're currently reading it. Bree, I hope you love it.
I just get excited because so that's a thriller, right? It's more, but it feels kind of the Gothic literature is coming back. And I feel after the year that we had in 2020, we need some dark and spooky Gothic literature. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it a go.
Yeah.
It has a beautiful cover too.
It does. It does. All right. Are we ready? I'll start off with one of my favorite tropes, and that's hate to love or enemies to lovers. So 2 people who hate each other usually for ridiculous reasons, I'll admit, end up overcoming their differences and fall in love. I know Jacqueline is not a fan of this one. What about you, Bree?
You know what? I side with Jacqueline on this one.
Oh, yes.
As some of you know, I use Anchor to host my podcast, and I couldn't be more pleased with their service. It made it super easy to go from being a beginner that had no idea what in the world I was doing to someone that still has no idea what I'm doing, but it looks like I do because Anchor does all of the hard work for me. If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, let me give you a rundown. Basically, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place, and here's how it works. Anchor lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to the most popular listening platforms, including Spotify, with a single tap. Anchor is also the only place you can publish video podcasts to Spotify. With Anchor, creators can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads like this one and podcast subscriptions. You want to hear the best part? Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
But one of my favorite books of 2020 fell into this category. But yeah, if I see that that's in the summary, I'm like, yeah, no.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad. I feel like everyone, and like literally, I think like 90% of romance books that are published right now are like hate to love. And I'm like, nope, you're not on my list.
There's been some really good ones, like The Trouble with Hating You by Sajni Patel. Loved that one. It's about our main character who is a fiercely independent engineer. She walks out on the man that her parents try to set her up with, and then they end up working side by side at her job. Loved that one. And then, of course, the one that everybody knows about, The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. It's been a while since I've read that. And I'm like, I want to know, because like I heard so many good things when I read it, and that is why I read it. And then I absolutely loved it. But then since that time, it's been a couple years and I've heard more and more negative stuff. I'm like, do I love it? Do I need to reread it to find out?
I don't know. Was that one of your 5 stars, Gwen, that you just were like, oh, I'm in a great mood today. Here's 5 stars.
You know what? You better stop picking on me. I have been harsh with books this year.
It's funny because I'm the opposite. And I'm like, oh no, I'm turning into Gwen. Somebody help me.
I'm rubbing off on you. We're trading positions. So if you don't know, The Hating Game by Sally Thorne is an office romance between Lucy and Joshua. And they're trying to outdo each other for a promotion. And of course, it's hate to love. So I don't know.
So you didn't like it, Jacqueline? You didn't like it?
I think I gave it like 2 stars.
See, I haven't read that one, but I read 99% Mine by her, and I might have tried something. I can't remember, but I was like, I don't think she's for me. I didn't like
I will say, I read, of course, The Hating Game first, which I think was her debut. I'm not 100% positive, but I read that one. And then I read 99% Mine, which I think is her sophomore novel. And then I think she has a new book coming out in 2020, this year, 2021. But I hated 99% Mine. Like, I was like, is this the same author? Like, I had to check like 5 times, like Sally Thorne with an E, Sally Thorne with an E. I was like, what, who? I was like, did she have a ghostwriter on the first book? Because this second book is like not good. So I do remember really enjoying it, but 99% Mine is not where it's at. So
the reason that I don't like hate to love is because I don't think that romance should start with hating somebody. I don't know. I guess it's because my husband is like so nice. And so I just don't agree with when I see characters in books that like are hating each other. I just don't think that that is a great romance that's starting out. I'm like, no.
You just want the cinnamon rolls, Jacqueline.
Yeah. Like, well, no, not even that. But it's like, why would you want to like hate somebody and then really you liked them? Like, why were you being mean to them? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Doesn't it feel like first grade where it's like, he's picking on you because he likes you?
Yeah.
And I love it. I just recently read Dating You, Hating You by Christina Lauren, which is also like a, hate to love thing. And they were pulling pranks on each other. And I just was like living for it. I didn't like the book that much, but The pranks part, I was living for it. Like, I love pranking people, but like my husband hates being pranked. So I can't really do that. So maybe that's why I love this trope so much, is because like it's my fix, you know?
See,
I don't know.
and I would hate to be pranked, so I would hate that book.
Yeah. Sometimes the pranks just become petty, and it's
They
like,
do.
especially when one of the characters, and it's usually the hero, who's like, okay, I've had enough of this, but she won't stop. So now I like have to keep going. And it's just like, okay, chill out. But I mean, that becomes the story. And
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So do you have any good hate to love recommendations, anybody, or is it just me over here?
I back you with the trouble that with hating you. That
Yeah.
was like my favorite book of 2020.
Yes.
And I mean, the hate to love aspect didn't last long. That's what I
Right.
liked about it. So
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So next up, what trope do we have?
So we have second chance romance next. This is
Okay.
when a character missed their chance the first time and are about to encounter a second chance. Maybe they had a bad divorce and are looking for a new love, or former loves rekindle their passion for one another. Any of you guys like this one?
I like this one.
Yeah, we know Gwen. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, but Bree likes this one too. What about you, Jacqueline?
It's okay. It's like, the thing is like, it's not something that I'm like, oh my gosh, second chance, like I need to read this book. It's just like, I don't think I have read a book that I like disliked with it. Actually, that's not true. I'm half and half.
Kind of like it, kind of not.
Yeah, it just depends on how it's played out.
My thing with second chance romance, because it took me a long time to get into it, and I still sometimes don't like it, but like, if it's a stupid reason that they broke up in the first place, I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. But what I do like seeing, kind of like we're seeing the marriage in trouble. I kind of group that with second chance romance, or they were married and they got divorced and now they're back together. We're seeing that a little bit more. So I think that there's ways to get creative with second chance. I also really like childhood sweethearts who never really got together and now they're back in the same space. I just want to see authors be creative, because they're like, oh, we broke up and now we're trying again. I'm like, okay, we're bored with that.
Yeah, I think exactly what you said is what I do like, because I love the marriages like kind of breaking apart and then getting back together. And then some of the ones where I read where it was like, childhood, and then they got back together later on. I've liked those. So
yeah, it kind of reminds me of like what you said. Like, it's not even they have to like fully like break up, even like a marriage or something, like in All Your Perfects. It's kind of like that they have like a problem within the marriage, but then they like overcome that. I almost feel like that counts. I mean, I'm not sure.
Are we talking about realistic things here, Gwen?
I know, Jacqueline, stop. I know that's your favorite. Okay, so my favorite second chance romance is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. And I know a lot of Christina Lauren fans do not like this one, but it really worked for me personally. The ending wasn't the best, but I loved it up into the ending, so I will forgive the ending. It's a book about a decade apart, childhood sweethearts reconnect for their second chance. And love it.
Is that the one with the like orangish yellow color? Okay.
Yeah, with the little white papers. Yeah, I really liked that one.
For mine, so we were talking about the marriage aspect. So the Bromance Book Club by Alyssa K. Adams. Love that one because, like they're in the middle of getting a divorce, and then like the husband is like fighting to keep the marriage alive. And I love that so much. And then even talking about that, it kind of made me think of After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I love that one too, because they do separate for a year because they're having marriage problems. And then like you figure out, okay, did that work? Like, did you miss the person? Did you not miss the person? So those are like the two that I think are like my favorite that I've read that are kind of second chance romance.
Okay. My first one is Undeniable by Melanie Harlow. She's one of my faves. And
I'm writing all of these down.
You're going to pull her up on Goodreads and be like, she looks like a romance author.
Oh no.
It's like childhood sweethearts. They try dating, they go to college and things happen. And now they're back in the same space. Like typical second chance romance, but it was just like really fun. And I really love the family dynamic of it. I really love that one. And then there's an older, like I call them the OGs. So like the older romance authors. So there's Joanne Ross, and she has one called Herons Landing. And in that one, the heroine always had a crush on the hero. And then this new girl comes to town when they were kids, and he ends up with her, and he ends up marrying her.
Oh no.
And then so they get married, and the wife is in the army as like a nurse, and she deploys and she dies. And so now it's like years later, and they're back in the same town, the original heroine and the hero. And it's kind of like her chance, like it's like not second chance, but is second chance. Like she's finally getting the chance.
That sounds really good.
And I loved it because I really like grief stories, which is weird, but like some romance authors do grief really well. And he was grieving like, I'm the one that's still alive, so it's not right for me to like move on and fall in love again. It was just really beautiful, you guys.
Yeah, it sounds good. I'm like writing all these down.
That's like right up my alley. Yeah, that's an awesome recommendation.
All right, so moving on to Forbidden Love. So think feuding families, Romeo and Juliet. It's one of the most famous love stories of all time. You have two characters that aren't allowed to be together. They're not supposed to have feelings for one another, but they just can't help it because love. So, all right, what about this one? What do you guys think? Forbidden Love.
I one of my favorites.
Oh my gosh.
We have a fave.
I was waiting on Jacqueline to be like, I hate it.
No.
What about you, Gwen? You like it?
I like this one. I haven't read too many though. I do have, I think it's always like, is it taboo or is it forbidden? And sometimes it's definitely both. One that like immediately comes to mind on the edgy side is Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, which is Jordan is with her boyfriend Cole, but then they end up moving in with Cole's father Pike, and it's kind of like a relationship between the dad and the girl. And then, but like a more tame version is like The Notebook by Nicholas Sparks. And I've never read the book, but I loved the movie.
I was just gonna say that I've never read that book, but I love the movie.
I did love the actors in there. I mean, like hot so.
I love that you brought up The Birthday Girl because I think that's like a classic romance. I loved it so much.
Yay!
Yeah.
And it's kind of slow burn. I remember reading it and I was like, I'm over halfway through and nothing has happened.
But once it hits though, you're like, okay.
I still remember the shower scene.
I still remember the edge of the desk scene or whatever piece of furniture that was. Like, wow. And I guess it just depends like what people consider forbidden, you know?
Yeah, I think that I do for the forbidden ones that I go for are definitely more on the darker side, or like, you know, society deems them as like not normal.
Like taboo.
Yeah. So Birthday Girl is definitely one of my favorites. And then The Idea of You by Robin Lee. I love that one because it's actually flipped where the woman is like 39 and she starts dating a 20-year-old in a boy band. So it also deals with like, he's very, very famous. And so her life kind of gets put on blast, and she has like a preteen daughter, and they're like, oh my gosh, how could you do this to the daughter? And it's like, would you be saying that if this was a man that was dating a younger woman? You know, you probably wouldn't. So I like that one. And then On the Island by Tracy Garvis Graves. So it's a tutor that it's only a couple years older than the boy that she's tutoring, but they get stranded on an island together. And so he is old enough by the time any romance happens. It's not like underage or anything. But I really like that one as kind of like forbidden as well, because a lot of society wouldn't think that that's okay.
Yeah, that teacher-student thing.
Yeah. Bree, what do you like this one?
I do.
Okay.
But I don't. Well, I guess in a way I kind of do because I
It's
mean,
like
I love it,
halvesies again.
but I don't feel like I read a lot. But then I love Siblings Best Friend, and that's usually like a don't touch my sisters kind of thing. But I went with Priest by Sierra Simone.
Okay.
He's a Catholic priest. He obviously should not be getting it on with Piper in the church. But he is, and it's so good. But
I love it.
He became the hero. We get his perspective like the entire book, and his sister. I don't want to give spoilers. I don't think it's really spoilers. He joins the church because of something that happened to his sister at the hands of another priest, and he feels like I need to change the world by being a priest and being better. And then in walks this girl, Piper, and she's gorgeous and changes everything. And obviously he should not be doing the things that he's doing. And it's wonderful, y'all. You're talking about forbidden. Like that takes the cake. It's
Yeah,
forbidden.
I think I would love that.
I was like, I think this is going on my TBR for today.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you came on here, Bree, because there's so many that I feel like I was like, wow, why did no one tell me about these before? Because I really struggle with actually finding romances that I really enjoy. I think I was talking to Gwen during our like end stats where I've read a lot of romance this year, but I hardly liked any of it. Like I feel like I'm trying a bunch, but there's only very specific ones that are for me. And 2 that you've said so far, I'm like, I think that those are ones for me.
I just go to Bree's Instagram and scroll. I'm in the bookstore and I'm scrolling through her feed. What has she posted about
That's
lately?
so smart. Yeah.
Because that's the one I need to get.
I'm always looking at her coffee. I'm like, ooh, I want that coffee, but I want that coffee. I'm like, book swear.
You show it to the barista. Can I have this, please?
Whatever's in it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I felt the same way last year at the end of 2020. I was like, I read a lot, but like, so I read like over, I think like 250 books and I only had 12 5 stars. And I was like, you rated 12 books 5 stars and you read this much. And that really bothered me. So like, I'm really trying to do better this year with like what I'm picking up and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. Did you have a lot of 4 stars and they just didn't quite make 5 stars? Or
I'm trying to be really selective. 5 stars are like books I'll be talking about 6 months from now.
Yes.
No, that's not it. I mean, and 4 and 3 stars I don't think are bad.
Right.
I kind of treat my 4 stars like I used to treat 5 stars. So
all right, I have to like butt in here since we're talking stats. Jacqueline,
Yeah.
you know you gave me a hard time about my stats. And I have read 15 books so far in January.
Oh my gosh.
And only 2 of them are 5 stars. And one of those 5 stars was a reread.
I love when rereads are still 5 stars.
Oh, they are. Love that too.
Wait till you get to the end of the year, Gwen, and you're like, and I still only had 2 5 stars.
And then I'll be like, okay, Jacqueline, this is not working for me.
She's like, this sucks. I hate it.
No, but like, I definitely see the merit. I am very, I'm a mood reader. So how I'm feeling in the moment is how I feel about the book most times. But I'm trying to really like say, is this going to be a book I'm talking about in 6 months? Is this a book that I'm like, everybody needs to read this book? So I am being harsher, obviously. We'll see if it stands up throughout the whole year though.
And I'll do that with my read because I mood read too. So I'll put like, you guys probably won't like this, but right now I needed it and it was perfect.
Yeah. Or I think sometimes it matters on like for you, Gwen, love in other words, like you have a special like meaning for that, or even all your perfects, like we have a special meaning for that. And so it really just depends, except I do get mad when I see people rate all your perfects like 1 star and they're like, the character was so whiny. And I'm like, you don't even know. I'm like, take that rating off of Goodreads. Next up, we have love triangle. This is when 3 characters are competing for each other's love and only 2 will pair off. This is a favorite romance trope for creating tension since the reader wonders who will pair off and who will be left alone. The ultimate trope to appeal to shippers, readers who like to pick a side and play matchmaker. And personally, I love this trope, but I don't think I've like really read hardly anything about it. But anytime it like starts kind of like popping up in a book, I'm like, oh my gosh, I really want this to happen. And then it like doesn't or whatever. But if anybody has recommendations, like I really want to read love triangle.
I think this happens a lot in thrillers too sometimes. So I think that's one of the reasons why I really like it.
It's like Jacqueline's thriller loving heart is showing.
Yeah. No, really, I feel like this is like every domestic thriller ever. And I love domestic thrillers, and that must be why.
I'm going to say like books like The Hunger Games, To All the Boys I've Loved Before, Shatter Me, Twilight, those all kind of fall under that umbrella, I think. But I'm going to recommend my favorite because a lot of people say that they hate love triangles. I remember there was like a couple years ago where people were like, I hate love triangles. And I was like, that's because you haven't read a good one. Because when it's done, I mean, I've been there. I'm sure as people have been in relationships, you've been in that point where you haven't like picked the guy. You're like, but he has good qualities and he has good qualities. Oh yeah, but he does this. And it's kind of like it's that point where you have to write a pro and con list. You're in a love triangle. Okay. So my favorite one of all time is is One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It will always be a favorite of mine. So this one, Emma Blair marries her high school sweetheart, Jesse, and they build a life for themselves far away from the expectations of their parents and the people of their hometown in Massachusetts. They travel the world together. They're living their life to the fullest, seizing every opportunity for adventure. Then this is where it gets tragic, guys. On their first wedding anniversary, Jesse is on a helicopter over the Pacific when it goes missing. And just like that, Jesse is gone forever. So Emma quits her job. She's grieving, obviously. She moves home, and in an effort to put her life back together, she starts working with her parents again, and she bumps into an old friend, Sam. And this kind of goes to that second chance a little bit, because I think they were like, friends in high school and stuff like that, but she ended up with the other guy. But now she's with him. She's falling in love with Sam. They're engaged to be married. And Jesse's not dead. He's been, working all this time to come back home. And now she's forced to pick between her husband, who she was married to, and her fiance, Sam. And she has to figure out like what she wants. And this, oh my goodness, it's like,
This is all in the back cover, guys. No spoilers here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is
Jesse comes
synopsis.
back, but it's on the back cover.
Yeah, it's in the synopsis, so it's not like I'm spoiling anything. So yeah, so you're just trying to find out like who is better for her, but in who to root for, because obviously, and you do get a little build up. I feel like it's more towards Sam, like you get more of them with Sam because her husband does kind of die nearish the beginning. But you're still like, okay, they had this wonderful life. But now she's in love with this guy. So like, what the heck? And the character is very confused. Like, what do I do? And I like the resolution and how it was handled. So my favorite.
I love that one too. It was my first Taylor Jenkins read that I read. And I was just like blown away by the story. And after I finished it, I was like, all right, Alvin, if I was lost, I was like, if I came back, would you pick me over your new wife? And he was like, no. And I was like, no, that's the wrong answer.
Wrong answer. It was also my first Taylor Jenkins read. And nice. I think that's why I love her so much. But when I read that book, I was like, anybody that says they don't like love triangles, read this and tell me you don't like love triangles.
Blink once for Jesse, twice for Sam.
I think Evelyn, I've only read Daisy Jones and the Six and Evelyn Hugo. And I read Daisy Jones and the Six first. And I was like, okay, this woman, it took me back to childhood and like E! True Hollywood days and like MTV Diary, like celebrity interviews. So I loved it.
Yes, Bree.
And then I read Evelyn Hugo and I was like, oh, this woman could write my grocery list and like include the pads and tampons and make it sound good.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly what I say when people like get down on Daisy Jones and the Six. I was like, okay, because it's bringing me back to go into the library with my best friend, like looking through Rolling Stones magazines, reading. Yes, exactly, Bree. I feel a kindred.
I need to read her backlist though. I do need to read her backlist.
Yes.
Read it all except for Forever Interrupted. Don't read that one.
Noted.
Or do and side with me, but go ahead.
I even read some novella that it was like
Evidence of the Affair, and it was written in letters.
Oh,
I read it twice back to back.
Oh my God, it was good. Okay, so my pick is this book called Back to Delaware, and it's by Andrea Hopkins. Okay. And it is an interracial romance. The hero was like this Justin Bieber pop star that like got his big break and went off and lived the pop star life, like started doing drugs and sleeping with girls. So the girlfriend, they break up, she stays home. She starts, in those years that he's gone, gets really close with his brother. And so now that he's like out of the limelight and he's moved back home, like he bought a house a couple of houses down from her. She doesn't know that he's there at first because he's like, life goes on when you're not here. Like I need to kind of sit back and watch it first. And yeah, like once he reintroduces himself, he sees that like she's been hanging out with his brother and his brother's crazy about her. And what I loved about it was like, there was nothing wrong with the brother. Like you said, like you want to be able to root for both. And like, I was rooting for Delaware because he's obviously like her soulmate, like they're meant to be together, but his brother's also crazy about her too, and he's a good guy. Like he does nothing wrong. So yeah, I had a hard time with this one. And then I was like, wait a minute. you read a good love triangle romance, and I found this one. So
Nice.
I do
Nice. That
love
sounds
though when like, yeah, nothing is really wrong with either of them, because like that makes it just even more hard. And I like that. Like I want to be struggling with like who I'm voting for in the book, you know?
Yeah, that's how it was with One True Loves, because like
Mm-hmm.
her husband did literally nothing wrong. They have a wonderful life. They
Yeah.
absolutely love each other. It's just that like his plane crashed and like he's dead, you know?
Yeah. And you move
But
on without him.
and then she moves home. I mean, after a while, like it's not like she moves home and then like her and Sam are like
Yeah.
instantly like
There's a
she's
grieving
obviously
process.
grieving. They're kind of like, you know, they're old friends, so he's kind of like there for her to help her, and then, you know, it eventually turns into something. And then you find out they're actually like in the very, I think it's like the first chapter is like or the first page is she's at dinner with her parents, like announcing like the engagement or whatever, and she gets the phone call that Jesse's alive. And I'm like, what? No. Oh my gosh. All right. So this next one I'm going to talk about, Secret Billionaire. I'm just going to tell you right off the bat, this is not something that even slightly interests me at all, because I'm not into that lavish lifestyle. Like I don't have a lavish lifestyle. I'm not attracted to the lavish lifestyle. But I know some people love this. So let's go ahead and cover it. A billionaire or a member of the royal family is tired of their lavish lifestyle, and they sneak out of the spotlight, probably in disguise or something crazy like that. And they run into someone who treats them as if they're an ordinary person. And so does anybody like, have you ever read any of these, Jacqueline?
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah, this is not for me. What about you? Bree's like, yes, this is my favorite.
so I have one, but I'm putting my own spin on it because I don't nothing about the billionaire romances, and you see a lot of those in like Harlequins, attracts me. Like, give me a cowboy that goes out and like works on his land with his hands over billionaires any day. But so yesterday, actually, I read one. It's called Once in a Blue Moon by Sharon Sala. And it's actually part of a series, but I obviously think it could be read as a standalone because I have only read this one and it's like the 10th in the series. But the heroine leaves her douchebag husband, and as she's leaving, because he was abusive, and like as she's divorcing him, he threatens her. He's like, you know too much. He's like this big Las Vegas casino owner. And so she grew up in Alaska. So she like leaves Vegas and she goes and lives off grid for a little while, then eventually makes it to Colorado, and then like hikes from Colorado to this small town in Georgia where the series is set. And she obviously like got money from their divorce, and she like stashed it in like 3 different bank accounts, but she doesn't use it. So I was like, okay, here she's this rich lady, but she's literally just trying to live her life hidden so he doesn't find her, because she's not dumb. She's like, he threatened me before we divorced. He's gonna come look for me. And the only way that the money even comes into play is like in the book, at the end of the book, she uses it for good. Like there's a neighborhood that the town just kind of abandoned and nobody did anything, but people live in it. And she's like, oh no, like there are mothers with kids here. Let me get this money and do right by these people.
I like that idea.
So I was like, okay, here she is, like this billionaire because of her old marriage, which was trash, and she uses it for good. So, you know, there are spins out there.
Yes, I like the spin idea.
You would probably like it, Gwen, because it's in Alaska, or part of it is.
I know. I was like, I'm writing it down. Yeah, so that one sounds pretty good. I would give that one a go. But yeah, it's not something I've ever been drawn to, but I definitely know a lot of people out there look at it. But I know there's like there's even, I think, a series called like Billionaire whatever. So if you're looking for that, sorry, we don't have more recommendations. You'll just have to Google it. I mean, honestly.
I think it could be like, if the world were different, it could have been like a nice escape. But for a while, we were like, we don't need any more billionaires. Like, there's nothing fantastical about billionaires right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, if someone's a billionaire, they have a skincare routine that's more involved in mine. Can't be bothered. Sorry.
Okay, next up we have Friends to Lovers. This is when characters have known each other since childhood. They used to see each other as just friends, and now they see each other as a potential love interest. This allows the characters to bond with each other as friends first, which allows them to be more open with each other without a physical relationship getting in the way. And I do have one recommendation for this. It's Eleanor and Gray by Brittany C. Cherry, and I loved it because it's like, it's so emotional. It's a childhood romance, and they drifted apart because Eleanor lost her mom to cancer. And it's also like a slow burn romance as well. But like the characters were so great. And like later on, Eleanor and Gray like reconnect, but he was already like previously married, and there's like other bad things that happened that he's like grieving through as well. And so it was just, I really like that one.
My friend Chloe, she loves her. And I'm just like, you said it's emotional. Like, I can't do emotional,
Oh,
but
I was crying my eyes
I'm
out.
going to read. There's one called, I think, Southern Storms or something. I'm going to read that in February. That's my Brittany C. Cherry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That one is coming out, I think. Yeah.
Is it new?
I
Oh,
think
gosh.
so. I
New?
think,
Okay.
or it might be like part 2 to whatever that series is, I think. Yeah. But just Eleanor's like mom and dad, like they had the like sweetest, coolest, just like marriage, and they would like joke and have fun together. And so I was like literally crying that her mom died. And then like it even talks about like her dad grieving through the process. And oh my gosh, like I was bawling my eyes out during this
Anything
book.
that has to deal with like parents and dying and sicknesses, oh, it just hits. And because, I'm just like, I don't want my mom and dad. Like, no.
Yeah. Well, and see, and I'm the opposite. I was thinking more of like, oh my gosh, like, what if like my own spouse died? Like, how would I feel? Like, how would I go about my day? Like that type of thing. So but I like the hard hitting topics. So.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. All right. What about you guys? Do you like this trope?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
I do. I don't think I've read enough of them, to be completely honest.
Okay.
So the only really, other than like Love in Other Words, that's kind of, we kind of talked about that before, where they were friends and then they get their second chance type thing. But this one, I recently read another Christina Lauren. Is anybody surprised? No. So my favorite Half Night Stand, I'm going to say just right off the bat, it wasn't my cup of tea. I didn't really enjoy it, but I have, from writing my Goodreads reviews, I know a lot of people did. So this one is Millie and 4 of her guy friends. They're all professors and they've been friends for a while. They're trying to get dates to this gala or something like that, a big event that their university is holding. And they decide we need to be on like Tinder. But they do it like on this IRL, in real life dating site. And they decide to all make dating profiles and try to find someone, because they've dated before, like people, and they've had sex with people, but they've never had that like committed relationship. So they all write dating profiles. Millie ends up editing all of them and rewriting all of the dating profiles for them. And she has this thing for her friend Reed, which is one of the 4 guys. And she writes these great dating profiles for all of these guys, but then in hers, it's just kind of like lackluster. And I think that's because she isn't the type of person that really wants to like be as open. She has like her walls up and stuff. So she writes this other dating profile under her middle name. So like kind of like an alias name that really nobody knows about. And her friend Reed, who she actually likes, ends up like a 98% match with her. So she accepts him so that they could like see each other's profile and stuff like that. And she messages him, and she blatantly thinks that her message is going to say, ha ha ha, it was me that, I'm this person, but he doesn't catch on to it. So she messages him again. It's like, ha ha ha, he's definitely going to catch on that it's me. Like, so at first she's not trying to string him along, but he's literally not picking up the clues, which is weird. But she just keeps it going. And so basically she catfishes him for a very long time throughout. And because of just the catfishing aspect of it, there wasn't enough like true romance for me. And it was hard for me to root for them, as like, it's like, so is he your friend? Like, would you want someone else to do this to your friend type thing, is what I was thinking. And I was just like, this is horrible. But some people like it if you don't look too deep into it, I guess. But that's really my only recommendation. So I don't think I've read enough of it, but I do like I said, other ones that kind of have this as like a small trope throughout. So I don't have that many recommendations.
Girl, I liked that book.
You did? Yeah, I think some people did.
Yeah, I think it was just because like the characters were all older, they were professors, and it was like one of those, like I had, been watching booktube and reading tons of YA, and I was like finally like, oh snap, like I'm reading characters that are like could be my age or older. I don't
Yes.
know. But and I just, it was my first romance of seeing like the whole online dating thing, and now we're
Yes.
seeing that more, and I just think
Mm-hmm.
that that's a fun spin. But yeah,
Yes.
a lot of people didn't like it. I
Yeah, see,
liked it.
that's the thing. It had little aspects of it like I liked. Like I liked that they did the texting that kind of reminded me of like elementary school when it used to show you the character that was talking, like type thing, how it was laid out in the book. So there were things about it that I liked, but as like a romance book, there was not enough romance there for me. Like I needed some romance. And it
I
was
think
not
a
enough.
lot of readers' issues is like a lot of their stuff is starting to feel more women's fiction.
Mhm.
And I think, okay, well, fine. Like I enjoy women's fiction. But if you're going into a book, especially for romance readers, if we go into a book wanting a romance and there's not a romance, like
Mhm.
we're pissed. So,
I think that's where I was with this one. And I was just pissed that like she was catfishing him for so long. Like I
yeah.
get why like I said, I get why she made the profile. I get that she initially started like, haha, I'll send him this funny message and like he'll be able to pick up on the clues. But then like after she kept it going and then they were kind of having relations on the side, but she still wasn't telling him. I was like, this is not good, girl. This is not good. All right. So anybody else recommendations, friends to lovers?
It's Deep by Rosie Adams. So I mentioned that I was reading the follow up to this one earlier. And it's another smutty novella, but the heroine is a romance slash erotica author, and she gets a bad review.
Uh-oh.
Like, oh my gosh, this author is like not connected, like what's going on? So she's like, I can't be this romance slash erotica author and like not, be putting out authentic stuff. So she asks her friend, like childhood friend, like, let's be sex partners. So I have like inspiration.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my
Chef's
gosh.
kiss. It was so good.
Oh my gosh,
Oh.
that sounds so good. I'm going to be reading this whole series, guys.
Whenever you need something quick and dirty, but really good at the same time, like
I
there
do
you
like
go.
it quick and dirty. So,
Sorry in
sounds like I
advance for
just
any
found my new
kids listening.
series. He's outside. Okay, check. Oh my goodness. That sounds hot. I'm in for it. All right. So, what about being stuck together or forced proximity? Trapped together in a snowstorm, forced to stay with each other overnight on a road trip, stuck in an arranged marriage, whether they're sworn enemies or already attracted to one another. They put these characters in the same place and let the drama ensue. What do we think about that?
So I think I haven't read enough of these. I think I only have like one recommendation, but when you said like stuck in an arranged marriage, I think that you and I, was it on your like most anticipated or something? But I think we had talked about an arranged marriage book that's coming out soon, or you read or something. I don't remember, but I think I want to read more like that because I'm like so intrigued by that. I don't know. So I really do want to find more or find some. I haven't read any of arranged marriage. The other ones, not a road trip. I don't think I'm a road trip girl.
I do like road trips. But anyway, I do like this in my thrillers, like this when characters are trapped together, because I like to
Mhm.
see how they're going to overcome the situation. Same thing within romance. I really like them being trapped together. So the ones that come to mind for me is The Bride Test by Helen Wong. I have so much love for this series, y'all. So in this, we have our main character, Kai, who has autism and he's been avoiding relationships, but his mother, of course, takes matters into her own hands and returns to Vietnam to find him the perfect bride. And she brings in Esme and she gets the opportunity to it's kind of like an arranged marriage type situation. Like she's hoping that he will have feelings for her and that it will develop into a romance. And it It is steamy. It's good. I really, really liked it. Also, you mentioned earlier On the Island by Tracy Garvis Graves. That, like I said, it falls into many kind of categories, but this one, they're stranded on a deserted island, and they're there for a very long time, weeks, months, and all the kind of things that happen. It's kind of like a survival romance too, because there's tropical storms and dangers in the sea and stuff like that. Also, this one is, it's really out there, guys. Credence by Penelope Douglas. She is basically, her parents die and she's 17. So has to go live with her uncle in this, like, in the wilderness of Colorado. And it's like right around winter time. So she's basically like trapped in this house because they live like out in the middle of nowhere. And she's trapped there with her uncle and like three of her cousins, or two cousins. And it's a wild ride. That's all I'm going to say. That's also slow burn. So if you're into that. Now, if you're looking for a YA recommendation, Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett. I loved that one. So you have best friends turned best enemies, Zori and Lennon, and they've been avoiding each other for unexplained reasons, which you find out when you read it. But they go on this group camping trip, and then all of their friends leave. So they're stranded in the wilderness together. And it's like camping, and like, you're figuring out why they're not friends anymore, and it's like developing feelings. Loved that one. So I actually obviously like this one. I have a lot of recommendations.
The only one that I have to talk about is also, it's like one of the only kind of like hate to love books that I like, and it's The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. It's actually like the only book that I really like from them. I keep reading them and I just don't vibe with them. But this one is about Olive, who is the like sister. Her sister is got married, and during the wedding, pretty much everyone got like food poisoning except for herself and like the groom's friend, Ethan, I think.
You heard his brother, yeah.
Or it was a brother and sister, yeah. So they end up taking like the honeymoon that the bride and groom were supposed to go on. So that's kind of like they were like trapped into like, okay, here, you take this and you're going to like Hawaii on this free vacation together. And then she like sees a future boss, and then she tells a white lie, and then they have to pretend that they're dating. So there's a couple different tropes in there, like fake dating, hate to love, and then also just like kind of being like stuck together on a vacation. But this one I actually did think was funny, and I didn't think that they were as mean at like to each other as some other hate to love. So that's
no
why
pranks.
I gave it like 4 stars. So I do think that this one most people I think would like. But that's it. I do not recommend Credence, by the way. I DNF'd that one. So sorry, Gwen.
No, I mean, it was crazy. I was doing a whole taste test with Penelope Douglas because I read Birthday Girl and Credence back to back.
So different. Oh my gosh.
I read Birthday Girl first, which I kind of wish I wouldn't have, but I was reading them like in publication order, and loved Birthday Girl. I was like, oh my gosh. And then Credence I was just like, wow, I think I like found out stuff I do not like.
Yeah, I felt like I was on like the dark web or something.
It was, I did. I was like, what kind of crap is this? Like, you have to be, your mind has to be wide open to new possibilities to read that one.
Yeah, I felt like it lasted for like, I think I made it to like halfway, and I was like, I feel like I've been reading like a 700-page book, like it's not ending. So I DNF'd it because I just did not like any of it.
Talk about a slow burn.
Isn't it a thick book? Is it a thick book?
I think so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done Birthday Girl, and I'm like, I think that's it for me.
That is the highlight so far.
Yeah.
So I do second The Bride Test by Helen Wong. Love Esme is one of my favorite heroines of all time. Like, she leaves Vietnam, where she was literally scrubbing bathroom floors and toilets for money. She was a single mom, so she leaves her kid, and Kai wasn't really feeling it at first, but I just loved how she was determined, like, I'm here and I'm gonna make it, like American dream, like to the max in that book.
And I like how she went to school too.
Yes.
She was like, well, while I'm here,
I'm here, let me get educated, let me get a job.
I loved it.
It was like, if you decide you don't want to be with me, I'm gonna be just fine. I thought that was so good. But then I also thought of Temporary Wife Temptation by J.C. Lee. And I guess like I love workplace romances because usually it's like, okay, we have to work together. Now we're kind of stuck together. And the hero in that one, they're both Korean, and the hero's grandmother and mom are plotting to like marry him off to some rich family in Seoul, and so that the families can come together for money reasons. And he's like, no. So he meets up with the heroine and he's like, I need you to like be fake engaged with me. And she's trying to adopt her niece. And of course, they don't want to give, her that adoption because she's a single working woman. So she's like, well, I need you to, they both have their motivations why the fake marriage needs to happen. And then romance reasons happen and they actually fall in love.
Aww.
It's cute.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's part of the Harlequin Desire line. So if you're new to Harlequin, like that is a really, really good starter romance if you've never tried it.
Nice.
You said that you like the office romances, then you actually might like The Hating Game because that's like all office romance.
Yeah, I need to try it, y'all.
Yeah,
99% Mine turned me so
Yeah, literally, once you read The Hating Game, even if you don't like the story, the writing itself, like literally the words that she chooses to put on the page are like, how are we over here on this one? And she was way over here on the other one. Like you will really think like, am I reading the same author?
Okay, then we have soulmates / bonded destiny. Characters who are meant to be together, whether there's a horrible misunderstanding or a natural disaster that separates them, soulmates and love stories always find a way to get back together. And one of my favorite books of all time kind of like fits into this trope, and it's Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid, because it literally is like the whole question is whether like a soulmate is a thing, because it's about Hannah and it's kind of, I guess, magical realism or like alternate reality. Her life splits into two, and you read about Hannah over here going on like this path in life, and then Hannah over here going in another path of life. And so she's meeting different people, like good things are happening, bad things are happening on both sides. And I literally, it's almost like One True Loves, where like I could not tell you which side I liked better. Like, I don't know what relationship I wanted her to be in. I was rooting for both different Hannahs and both different guys. And it was just, it's so good. I love it so much, but it really is like, are you wondering whether the person that you're with is the person you're supposed to be with? Cause like, you're just never going to know. You're not.
Yeah, I liked that one too. And of course, that book always reminds me of The Two Lives of Lydia Bird, which I didn't really enjoy. I really loved Maybe Another Life, but The Two Lives of Lydia Bird just didn't hit the mark. But it definitely explores that, is there such thing as soulmates, and where your life splits, like you're able to live this life and see what happens in this one. And then, obviously in both options, there's good things that happen and bad things that happen, and you have to choose, like, in this case, she didn't have a choice, like which option she was choosing.
Yeah.
But the one that I want to recommend is a YA sci-fi series, 1,000 Pieces of You by Claudia Gray. It's the Firebird series by her. It's a couple years old, but I really enjoyed it when I read it. I think I read all three, obviously, but I rated them all 5 stars. But of course, that was back when I was reading a lot of YA. But in this one, we have our main character, Margaret, whose parents are physicists, and they create this ability to jump into different dimensions. It's like a device that they can use to jump into multiple dimensions. And her father is murdered, and the killer that she assumes is Paul, her parents' assistant. And so she starts going through these different dimensions, racing after Paul, and she leaps into other versions of herself. And then, of course, Paul's life entangles with her, and they become more familiar with one another. And then she kind of finds out like more about like what Paul's involvement is, and is her father's death totally different than it came out, like, how it seemed and stuff like that. So it's really about like Paul and Margaret, are they soulmates, or is something more sinister?
Good. I just wish it wasn't YA.
Yeah, and it's sci-fi, so if you like sci-fi,
yeah,
that sounds like the Twilight Zone.
It does a little bit, and it really does go there. Every single book, it's like different dimensions, and you see how the different dimensions are different. So that was kind of cool too, because I really don't normally like sci-fi, but in this I really did. So
So I have two for soulmates, y'all.
okay.
So the first one is Remembering a Witch by Lauren Connolly. And in this one, the heroine is, I think she's a college professor or something. She's like walking her dog towards the college campus, and she like sees this guy sitting there, and it's like all of a sudden her soul's like, you know this person, you've been in love with this person before.
Oh wow.
And she doesn't say anything at first, but they like introduce themselves to each other. They get into a relationship, and then through the rest of the story, and it's a like less than 200-page book, but through the rest of the story, they find out that they were indeed like together years before. It's a reincarnation story. She's the reincarnation of an aunt of hers who was killed for witchcraft or being deemed a witch, and they learn his involvement in it as well, and it's just like their souls transcending time and finding each other again. And I was like, oh god, like I love it. And the other one's kind of similar. It's called Beyond Time by J.A. Armstrong. And another, I think she's like she's not a college professor, she's like a news anchor woman. She needs a break. She's been working, she's like worked to the bone, and her assistant's like, you need to take a break. So she goes to a family cabin, I think in like Maine or something up on the East Coast. And she is like out rowing, and she gets to this other island across from where the cabin is. And she's like exploring. She finds this old cabin. She goes into it. It's like empty. No one's been in there for years. And as soon as she walks in, it's like she's walked through like another dimension or something. Like it's all lit up and there's furniture. And long story short, it's another kind of reincarnation story. She was in a relationship with a woman back in like the 20s when the war was happening, and obviously women couldn't be together during that time. So her lover married this guy who went off to war, and they both go through life not together, and now in present day they have found each other again. And
that's awesome.
So good. It was like one of my first like female romances, and I was like, oh, I love this. I loved it. So
yeah, that sounds good.
Awesome.
I'm telling you, I knew she was going to have some good recommendations. My TBR has just doubled, guys.
I've been doing some digging. Okay, I have to do some digging.
I love it. So this next one, fake relationship. They're tired of being single, or they pretend that they're in love to get out of an awkward social situation. In many fake relationship stories, it begins as a fake relationship, but it turns into true love. So some of my favorites, Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. Of course, the freaking queen. Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. The Wedding Date by Jasmine Guillory. The Unhoneymooners, which of course we have beaten with a dead horse. But Take a Hint, Danny Brown, I love this one. And it's so hard to choose which one do I like better, but I don't have to choose. I love all the Brown sisters. So this one, they're the friends, and he's doing a test of the security system or something, and she gets stuck in the elevator. He has to hold her and carry her out of the building, and everybody gets it on film. And then they have to they decide that, okay, let's work with this. He's trying to take advantage of the publicity for a charity, and she can't say no. She's like into it. So yeah, I just love it. And I love the little hashtag that they use, Dr. Rugby, and I loved it so much. It was my favorite book last year. So, and then Red, White, and Royal Blue is it starts with a photo of the first son of the United States and the Prince of Wales fighting, and then because of that they have to do damage control. So they're like, no, we're really friends, look, we're BFFs. So really like that one. And then The Wedding Date, that's also at the beginning, it's a little forced proximity because they're in an elevator and they kind of get stuck, and Drew is on his way to his ex's wedding, and he's like, hey, you want to go to the wedding with me and be my date? And she's like, oh, okay. So I do love this one.
I don't think that I do love this one. I do have a recommendation, but I feel like when I see a fake relationship in a romance book, it's not something that I am intrigued by. But the recommendation that I have is If I Never Met You. And I really don't know how to say this name. And I think people said that it was Scottish. And so I'm just going to have the book link down below because I know that the way I say it is not right. It's totally wrong. But this book I like because it's older characters. So it's about Lori, who's 36, and she's been with her boyfriend Dan for 18 years.
Wow.
And she has a talk with him about wanting to come off the pill so they could finally start a family. And this freaks Dan out, and he realizes that he never wanted kids and that he isn't happy with Lori anymore. So they break up. But guess what? 3 months later, he announces that he's with another woman and she's pregnant. Yeah. So that like made me just furious. But then it goes on to be where Lori is actually like fake dating someone, I believe like in her office at work. So there's a lot of different storylines going on, but I really enjoyed this one actually, but a lot of people didn't. And I think it is more like slow burn. It's a lot more like adult mature topics. And so that's why I liked it. It's not as like, fun and floofy
And that's not
other
spoiler.
romances.
That's in the synopsis, guys.
It is, yeah.
So
it's in the
that's
synopsis.
that's just the tip of the iceberg we're talking.
Yeah, but oh my gosh, I was so angry. But anyway, I really liked
Can
this
you imagine
as like fake
18
relationship.
years and then like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, it's not really working out, and then just like literally turn around, oh, you're with this other
And
girl and she's pregnant. Awesome.
I just feel so bad for Lori too, though, because like you spent all of that time being with someone, and like, yeah, when you get to an older age, like your time is running out to have a family, and then for someone to just dump you, and you kind of have to start from scratch, and it's like time is running out. Like what? I don't know. I just I liked it.
So I had two. The first one is a fairly new release. The first one was Written in the Stars by Alexandria Belleflore. And this one is a female romance. They actually went on a blind date and did not hit it off. And then the sister of, so the hero, I hate to say the heroine, and it's like there's two females, but it's Elle and Darcy. And Elle is, her brother works with Darcy, and Darcy has this, she has like this astrology business, and Darcy and her brother are like really good friends, and they have like this family thing, and oh my gosh, you can't come home again and not have somebody. So they both have like their motivations for why they need this relationship to like, they need to pull it off basically. Same way with Darcy, like don't want to show up again and like be the only sibling that doesn't have someone. And it was just, I loved how like unapologetically they were both themselves, especially Darcy. I loved her so much, and like all the little nerdy like astrological stuff in there, I was like, I'm loving this.
That's
I
awesome.
love that. And then, so another one is kind of like the Unhoneymooners. It's called The Anti-Honeymoon by Bethany Michaels. And I read this one last year, and I was like, nobody's talking about this book, and it's so good. So the girl literally, like, it's her wedding day, and all she asked her fiance was like, my little found family, can they sit in the front? He has them sitting in the back because like they don't go with his lavish lifestyle. And so she's in the back getting dressed, and one of her friends is like, you don't have to do this. So she ditches him at the altar, and she jumps into this limo, and some kind of, I can't remember how, but the hero of the story shows up, and she's like, let's just go on my honeymoon together. And like they have a list of things that she was going to do on her honeymoon, and he's like, let's do everything the opposite. So instead of like romantic dinner on the beach, let's do pizza on the beach. Instead of yoga, like couples yoga, let's do kickboxing. And it was so fun. So if like if you like the Unhoneymooners, like that vacation type romance, and this wasn't hate to love, it's more like we don't know each other to lovers. I really liked it.
I think this is a kind of a trope that comes up in a lot of like Hallmark movies, like especially around Christmas time. Like, I can't go home alone again. Can you come with me? Or they'll like call a dating agency, like, hey, send me over some guy. Or they'll like ask some guy in their office, like, hey, you want to come home with me for the holidays?
And that just baffles me. Every time I read it, I'm like, are people's families really like this? Because my mom was like, you don't have to get married if you want. Like she told us that like all throughout my life. It's fine if you stay single. So I'm like, are people's parents really like that?
I know.
In romance, it's a thing.
Yes.
Don't come home alone again.
Okay, then we have Slow Burn. This focuses on a character-driven love story where that relationship takes some time to develop, a significant amount of development of the characters throughout the novel with romantic tension that builds and builds. Many readers claim this as their favorite trope because it lends itself to a believability factor and value is placed in small gestures rather than grand ones. And when that moment finally happens, it's pretty special.
I know this is probably one of your favorites, or it should be, Jacqueline, because that believability factor that you always need.
Yeah.
So, a couple that I wanted to recommend: The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. I thought it was pretty slow, and I just thought it was kind of like perfect. It did have, they had like banter, but it wasn't like hate to love banter. It was just kind of like, oh my gosh, you're annoying type banter. But I really liked that one. I also liked The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. I know some people didn't really connect with that, but it was also slow because they shared a flat and a bed, but they had alternating schedules. One was there during the day, one was at night. Is that believable? The fact that they did that? Probably not, because there's sick days and things happen. But I like that it wasn't just immediately they're together just because they're sharing a bed in a flat. And then also a urban fantasy / paranormal romance is the Fever series by Karen Marie Moning, I think is how you say her last name. But the first one is Dark Fever, and that's Michaela's sister was murdered, and she follows a clue and a message, and she journeys to Ireland to search for answers. And there's kind of like powers and stuff and fae, and I didn't get very far in the series, but it's definitely slow burn because like in that first book, nothing happens. So you have to get a few books in. It's real slow.
Yeah, I think that I do like this trope. I feel like I just don't like I haven't read a lot that are just specifically slow burn. So like we said, Birthday Girl was kind of slow burn. And I even think that like On the Island is slow burn because it takes a while for a relationship to develop. But then another one that comes to mind is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I felt like this one was definitely a slow burn, but it's also telling a story. So you're kind of like going through the life of Evelyn. She's talking to a reporter and she's talking about how like in the 1950s she left the show business, and talks about like going all the way through the late 80s and all the 7 husbands that she had along the way. But then it even talks about like a great forbidden love and stuff like that. And so that one I did think was slow burn, but in a different way, and it was done really well. But yeah, I don't have one that's specifically, I mean, I think Eleanor and Gray was slow burn too. So I know that I do prefer those. I don't like to jump into a romance book and all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, like you're just like the best person in the world, let's date. Like I'd rather have it be slow burn, which is weird since Alvin and I met and got married in 6 months. Like,
yeah.
It's fine, everyone.
No slow burn happening there, guys.
Yeah, no slow burn for that.
I think me and my husband made it to like 9 months. I think we got married at like the 9 months.
That's so cool. I love it. Love to see it.
So weird looking back. I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have like
gone real wrong.
Yeah. It's like, how do we not know they're not murderers? Like,
yeah. Okay, so I had 2. The first one was 10 Rules for Faking It by Sophie Sullivan, which I think it came out at the beginning of January. It's a new release. And it's slow burn just because like the heroine has social anxiety. She like spills over the radio. She's like a radio producer. It reminds me of that old show Frasier. She reminds me of Roz.
Oh, nice.
And she's like, her girlfriend's like on like the radio host, and she like doesn't realize they're still recording, and she like spills how she walked in on her boyfriend with another girl. And she's like, we're on the air.
Oh my gosh.
So it becomes this thing. The city's like, oh my gosh, we have to like hook her up. And old ladies are like, I have a son, she can go on a date.
Oh my
gosh. It becomes this whole thing of like her going on these different dates, and like the guy that owns the station is the love interest of the story. And so most of the book is watching her go on dates with other people, and then them spending time together at work, and eventually realizing like, this is my person. Like, I don't need to go on any more dates. He's right here. So I really liked it. I saw some reviews, like some people are like, oh, I DNF'd it. And I'm like, you have to just stick with this book because it's so good.
Yeah.
That reminds me of Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating, where they're setting each other up on these like blind dates, but then obviously like they're the ones that are supposed to be together.
And then my other one, so this one's kind of tough, y'all. So if anybody reads it, pick a day where you have nothing going on. I started it at like 6 in the morning, and I was like, I'm not putting this book down until I finish it, because if I put it down, I probably wouldn't pick it back up. And that's Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan.
Oh,
It
I've
is
seen that.
tough. It's got a very sexy man on the cover.
Yeah.
It is such, and it's a slow burn because she's with somebody else and he's abusive. And I mean, you experience the abuse, and then she gets the man she's supposed to be with at the end of the book. But it is beautiful. She has
That's going on my
writing.
list.
I know, Bree.
Tough, y'all.
I told
I'm
you she's coming with a Rex.
Oh my gosh, that sounds
telling you,
awesome.
I was pissed. I wanted to throw the book.
Yeah.
But the slow burn is so worth it, because at the end, it feels like you like let go of this breath you've been holding that you didn't realize, and she's happy.
That's awesome. I love any books that like really, whether you want to like throw the book or you want to cry or whatever, like anything that brings like really strong emotions.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. Okay. It's going on my list. So now let's just go ahead and talk about those taboo romances, darker stories that deal with controversial themes and topics like age gap, slave master relationships, etc. I do like these, but again, I probably haven't read enough. And I have to be in a certain mood for these because they do get dark. The first one that I ever read that really did kind of make me know, oh, I do kind of like this, is Tears of Tess by Pepper Winters. And this is where Brax and her boyfriend, it's their 2-year wedding anniversary, and he surprises her with a romantic trip to Mexico. And she is kidnapped, drugged, stolen, and she's forced into a world of darkness and terror. And it's actually part of a trilogy. I think it's a trilogy. And I've read the first and second book, but yeah, it's dark because you're there for all of it.
Is this the one where I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't you tell me this before? And you were like, you're not going to like it, Jackie. Because it sounds like something I would like.
It's really dark.
I don't
like recommending books this dark to people, because I'm like, when I'm like, oh, I really liked this book, and then you read it, you're like, dude, she likes some dark stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like one of those that you're like, I really like this, but I'm not telling anybody I liked it, because they're gonna be like, whoa, dude.
I feel like I would like it because I do like really dark things.
Oh, we need a reading vlog of Jackie.
Oh my gosh, that would be crazy. But yeah, Tears of Tess by Pepper Winters.
Yeah. Well, my recommendation is kind of, like dark / wrong, like some, and yeah, like I put it on, it was my favorite book of 2020. And I even got a comment just the other day that someone was like, I respectfully disagree with you liking this book. And I was like, that's fine. I know that this is a very controversial subject, but All the Ugly and Wonderful Things is about a very young girl that has a friendship first with almost like a guardian type figure. And then eventually they do start having a romance, but she still is underage. And I know that some people think that there's like grooming involved. And I really think that, it just really depends. Like, I don't have a daughter myself. Other people don't like it because they think of their daughter being in that situation. I picture myself as like a 14-year-old in that situation. And I always wanted to get like married really young at like 16. And I was always way ahead of my growth compared to everyone else. So I had like an adult body at the age of 14. I know the character doesn't in this book, but in my own experience, like I didn't view it as something that's like really bad. And then also from where the character Wavy, where she's coming from, is way worse than what we're talking about. And so, you really have to like look that one up and make sure that you're okay with reading it. But I do love that one a lot as my like taboo romance.
So mine, I don't read a lot of dark romance.
Is it because you're not drawn to it, or because you're like scared? You're like, no way. See, because like Jacqueline and I don't have kids. You have children. So maybe you're like, I can't read this age gap stuff.
I'm just like, I'm not getting kidnapped, okay?
But I think we like thrillers too. So we're like, kidnapper.
I always like, all of my girlfriends that read dark romance will send me like the comments they get on their videos, and I'm like, y'all are some of the bravest people ever, because I don't know how much of that I could deal with. And like, handle it with grace like they do, because people that watch YouTube and comment on Instagram, they're not always nice, and they're going to voice their opinions. And when you get into those darker stories, they're like, oh my gosh, like, how dare you recommend this? And it's like, whatever people want to read, it is what it is. But so when I want taboo, I read Jessica Kane.
Okay.
She is, if you pull up her website, all it says is Jessica Kane status. Like, she leaves you satisfied. That's it.
Oh.
They're short. They're like less than 60 pages most of the time.
Wow.
And my first by her was called The Farmer's Daughter. So homegirl turns 18. She's an adult now. She can go have sex now. And one of her dad's farm hands she's had a crush on forever. He's obviously older than her, so like there's that age gap. And it's like, okay, I'm an adult now, I can do this. But then he hires this other guy too, and homegirl's like, I'm not going to be with either one of you unless I can have both of you at the same time. That's what you get when you go to her. It's like, and she does have some like darker novellas, but I really like her. If you want something, again, quick and fun and dirty, Taboo, like, she's my go-to. And I also like Frankie Love. I started with her Way to a Man's Heart series, and they're all like food pun titles. Like, the first one is Pizza My Heart.
Oh yeah, I think I have heard someone talk about that before.
You probably have. Yeah. They are the best trash 40 pages that you could, indulge yourself in. But yeah, I mean, I love it. Give me something quick, taboo, and I'm all over it. But
food
I can't
and
really I can't do the dark stuff just yet. I aspire to, but like, I haven't made it there yet. I read what I would consider dark romance, and I was like, I can do one of these a year.
Yeah, like I said, you have to be in a mood, and you almost don't want to recommend, because like there are obviously trigger warnings like all over dark romance, like all kind of crazy stuff. And then what's triggering for me may not be for someone else, and it's just this downward spiral. So.
And I feel like I don't think I've read like any of the like kidnapping, that type of books yet. That's why I want to read yours, Gwen. But mine have been more like age gap, like kind of what you were talking about, Bree. And so that's like more of the taboo that I go for, that I know that I like. I'm not sure how dark I would be able to get.
Yeah,
because Credence was just really weird to me. So that's why I didn't like that one.
Yeah. But I've definitely read a couple of these, but that's always the one that sticks in my head. I think I liked it the most because not only, the first book is probably the darkest in my opinion. The second book is, it continues on and stuff like that. But it has some really dark stuff in book two too. But there's some really dark stuff that let me just say it is dark. That's all.
See, I get confused because like I'm trying to read more paranormal this year, but I do love titles that I wouldn't consider paranormal, but I wouldn't consider dark. And I think people say dark because of like what happens in the book. And then I wouldn't consider it necessarily gothic either, but like Sierra Simone has this series called the Thorne Chapel series, and there's a lot of taboo stuff that happens in it. It's in this old like house in like the English setting, like all these American kids, they go over there and they're like, their parents grew up together and they know who each other are, kind of thing. But like, she puts a lot of like mythology and religious symbols in there, and it's dark. It's a dark tone series, but like I wouldn't say it's dark because of like there's no kidnapping or anything.
Right.
Very sexy.
Yeah. All right. So which romance books or romance authors do you think deserve more hype?
So I just want to do a plug for an entire line of books. So Harlequin has their Dare line, and it is discontinuing this year, which makes me very pissed off. And I don't know whose doors I have to knock down on to find out why. They probably wouldn't listen to me anyway. I'm trying very hard on Instagram to like let them know I'm not happy about it. But I think a lot of they do a good job of like replicating their lines based off what they see other people enjoy. And a lot of what's popular is the stuff you find on Kindle Unlimited, right? The fun, sexy contemporaries. And that's what you find in this line. So I'm like, why is it going away? So I'm just trying to like push it in people's face as much as possible, because once the summer hits and they stop it, you're not going to get any more.
Mm-hmm.
And in the States, it's only available to us via ebook, but you can obviously check Book Depository. Over in Europe, it's called Mills and Boon. You can check their website. And I mean, these are really good books. And I'm just like, I want to plug it as much as possible for
Yeah. Yeah, I have seen you talk about that on Instagram. My problem with more like indie and more like Harlequin series and stuff like that, like some of these sound amazing. Like I would totally love them, but I'm such a traditionally published girl. Like if I don't get it in print, if I don't get it, I never pick up my e-reader. I mean, it's so rare that I pick up my e-reader. Now I know some people that love their e-reader, like they don't read any other way.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I don't have it staring me in the face all the time. I'm not going to get to it, even if I had it, on my e-reader. So I think that's part of the problem with me with some of these romance that I don't really read about, or there's certain authors that they're only published that way. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm never going to get to you. So I'm going to try though to get better about it.
I'm the same. I'm the same way. I have a Kindle Paperwhite and I have my iPad, and I very rarely pick them up unless I have like a smutty novella day. But
Bree wakes up and she's like, feels like a smutty novella day today.
It does. But yeah, that's my plug. I want people to give them a try.
Nice. Do you have any romance books coming out this year that you're super excited for?
Yes. So Wild Rain by Beverly Jenkins, it releases in February. She was my first historical romance author. If you've never read historical romance and you want to try it, try Beverly Jenkins. I'm really looking forward to The Dating Plan by Sarah Desai, I think is how you say it.
Mm-hmm.
I know that is like a book of the month pick, so some people probably already have it. I don't. I'm really wanting The Heart Principle by Helen Wong whenever she decides to release it.
I know it's moved so many times. Like, just please.
Just give us the book. And then one of my all-time favorites is Naima Simone, and she has a small town romance coming out called The Road to Rose Bend. And I'm excited because I'm like, she's written some pretty sexy stuff. So like to see her writing a small town, I'm intrigued.
Nice. Yeah, we talked all about our anticipated releases from like January through April, and then we're going to do more, like probably two more episodes of all of our releases. So if you missed that, you'll have to go back and listen to that episode. It was a really like fun episode. Lots of books that we're looking forward to in there. But have you heard of The Marriage Pass by Brianna Cole? I want to read that one so bad. Bree, you have okay. Let me pitch it to you, because I saw this and I was like, oh my gosh, Jacqueline. I read it and Jacqueline was like, oh my gosh, let me pre-order.
Yeah, I added it to my list. Yeah.
Okay, so The Marriage Pass by Brianna Cole. I'm like trying to turn everybody onto this book. Okay, so you have a husband and wife. They're happily married, and on their 1-year wedding anniversary, they decide to give each other a pass, and so they can do whatever their darkest desire is. The man decides this is his opportunity to sleep with his wife's little sister. Can you imagine this right now? How does this turn good? How does this turn good? Like, I just can't. I'm so excited. The cover is stunning. That orange is popping, and I'm so excited for it.
I have not heard of this book until now.
Oh my God. No one, like I'm looking at all the, because I look at other people's anticipated too, in case I missed something. And no one's talking about this book. We need to spread it. Brianna Cole, The Marriage Pass. Let's do this. Look at the cover. It's a gorgeous cover. Like usually like, oh, because someone saw that cover, they were like, that ain't happening. No, the cover is gorgeous. Like I'm so excited. It's probably, Taylor Jenkins Reid has a book coming out. Riley Sager has a book coming out. But this one, out of nowhere, I am hyped for this one. I am hyped. In the notes of today's show, we will have a link to all the books we mentioned in today's episode and a link to the article from Oprah Magazine that lists 125 Black-owned bookstores. If you're interested in purchasing any of the books that we talked about in today's episode, we recommend shopping from one of these stores. And she has it broken up by state as well, but of course you don't have to shop from your state because shipping is crazy however you get your book. But yeah, I'd like people to shop from this list. There's lots of bookstores there.
Bree, thank you so much for coming on air with us today. We had so much fun chatting romance with you. Again, make sure you guys check her out. Her links will be in the notes of today's episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, looking ahead, what do you have going on? I know you've been working, but I know you have some days coming up that you're going to be off. What do you have planned for those days?
So mostly just kind of like filming and editing, getting ahead, because I have still been doing 4 videos a week, 2 on my book channel and 2 on my main channel, even though I'm working full time, and I've been able to like keep up with it. And I think it's also just because I've been really trying to focus on like self-care also. So my last week when I had my 2 days off, I did like one very productive day, and then I did one day where I did a social media detox. And so I was able to like read and clean and like feel like I was being productive and not spending hours like on TikTok and like stuff like that. So I think I might do that again these 2 days. And then I'm also super excited for the like Galentine's Day party that we have coming up in the book
Oh my
club.
gosh, I am so excited for that too.
Yeah.
I was wondering how your social media detox went. Sounds like it went good. It sounds like you're adjusting being back at work now. I know you were a little hesitant going in, but I think we have like fun things on the horizon. Like you said, Galentine's. I'm so excited.
I know.
It's just going to be like a girl's day,
I know, and
but
I
like
have
with
not-
so many of our friends.
Yeah, I haven't drank alcohol like since I started doing the Whole30. And so it's not going to be totally 30 days. It'll be like 28 days by the time February 6th rolls around, which is when our Galentine's thing is. And I literally cannot wait for that taste of alcohol in my mouth.
I haven't had anything either since our Rex by the bottle.
Yeah. So that was the last time I did too. So.
So I've been holding off with you and it's fine.
Can't wait.
So lately I've just been really into puzzles. I'm the weather here hasn't been the best. It's been really, really, really cold. So I haven't been able, and even when I do go outside, like the sun has not been out. It's just been gray and cloudy, even if it's not raining or storming or whatever. And we haven't had snow yet. We had a few sprinkles, a few flakes, but that was it. It lasted like 2 seconds. I was so excited at first because if it's going to be cold, I'd rather it just snow. So I have been kind of hit with getting that kind of like depressing, I'm so sad type thing. So what I've been doing to get out of it is staying busy with reading, doing puzzles, making new recipes, which I love sending that stuff to you. I'm like, look, I made a new recipe. So I've been trying to stay busy inside, and we recently got Charlie groomed, which it's been a while. Like I think it was before she was like 1 year old, or right around when she was 1 year old, we had her groomed, and we didn't really like that experience. Cause this is the first time we've ever had a dog that could be groomed. Like she has hair instead of fur. But then we recently got her groomed, and she looks like an adult dog now. Like she was a puppy before, but now she looks like, it's like, you're an adult now. I was like, is this how people feel when they give like their child their first haircut?
Yeah. I think a lot of times because they're like cutting off like their baby curls, and then their hair never curls again.
So she looks very different, same personality, same craziness. But so that's all I've really been up to.
That's what happens like during this time of the year. I mean, I am glad that I did go back to work because I've been putting like kind of like my drive into work. And so, I haven't been like overly stressed, and I've been enjoying like going back to work because it's kind of really put me like on a schedule. And then I've also had a really good week with reading. I've been listening to audiobooks and getting a lot of those done. So I feel like very productive, which in turn makes me feel very good. When I'm not productive, I don't feel good about myself. So it's good that I'm like busy right now.
Yeah, I feel like the beginning of January, I was very out of sorts. The holidays were over, like you had just left, and like, I don't know, I was just kind of like in that mood where I was just like not feeling it. But then the second half of the month, I've been feeling a little bit better. I've been a little bit more productive. Like you said, I've been sticking to a schedule and stuff like that. So it's worked out.
Today on Talk Bookish to Me, we discussed things we like and don't like in romance books and offered several recommendations. Shout out to Deja for sending in that topic. And again, a huge thanks to the Queen of Romance, Bree, for joining us on today's show.
If you'd like to recommend a topic for us to discuss in a future episode, reach out to us at talkbookishpodcast@gmail.com or on Instagram at talkbookishpodcast. We're still asking everyone to rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts and continue sharing the show with your friends.
As always, we'll be back every other Monday for more bookish talk. Come back and join us again in 2 weeks, where we're going to have another guest on air with us discussing Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. Until next time, happy reading.